Hi, I'm Jack Carey, and I'm about to make a very bold and blanketed claim that the USDA and the FDA have failed. And this comes from many reasons, but primarily for their inability to confront the biggest issue and the biggest problem that is facing America today, and that is obesity. Um, Obesity has been a silent epidemic that has been raging in the United States for years, and it all stems from the inability of the FDA and the USDA from recognizing that sugar and fast food and big food has been the main cause. Um, the USDA is in charge of many things, and the FDA many things as well. Food and Drug Administration and the USDA are in charge of, well, education, dietary education, even in public schools and in education. They provide many good resources on how to stay healthy, but they don't emphasize the importance of staying away and really counting how much sugar is in something. Um, and let me show you how they have failed. When you think of the food group or the five essential food groups, you don't think of sugar being in one of them because they're not essential. When you think of the food pyramid, you don't think of that either. When you think of a my plate, you think of X, Y, and Z, these types of meats, but we should be talking about actual macromolecules like lipids and the types of lipids and proteins and the and sugars and much more. There's much more to it than meats, veggies, and all this other stuff. No, there's much more, and they fail to communicate that with the American public. And let me show you how. I'm about to take a random thing that it's you find in American households everywhere, and that is Nutella. Nutella. Now, you could eat spoonfuls of this. You could put this on your toast, on whatever. People have many different ways of using Nutella, but people don't think about how bad it actually is for you. So, to give an example, people don't think about the amount of sugar that they're intaking when they even eat Nutella. So, let's look at the back of this, at the food label, and we see that the serving size is 2 tablespoons or 37 grams. 37 grams. Of that, 11 of it is total fat, and another 22 of it is, you guessed it, sugar. 21 grams of total sugar. Out of 21, that's about 56% of this bottle being sugar. Being this, whenever you have 2 tablespoons of this, two of these, a little over one of these is going to be sugar. That's something very important to think about that we don't think about. That sugar is in a very high content in a lot of our food and in a lot of our diets. Well, our diets aren't what the human body was originally meant to, it was meant to be intaking. We our bodies store food like it's the the caveman stages of humanity, where we didn't know if the next meal was coming, so it stores it away in adipose tissue, and it makes it hard to get rid of. And well, when you have too much adipose tissue, you become obese, and you run a risk for diabetes, heart disease, and many other terrible diseases. The number one killer, and this is from CDC.gov, number one killer of men, and in general, above from 18 to 34, anything after that, the number one killer is heart disease. And it is because over what is it, 70 to 80%, according to CDC.gov, of America is obese to overweight. And that's frightening. If we're losing more people to obesity, wouldn't you say that there is an issue with the USDA and FDA and how they have failed? Well, let's go and let's look at obesity rate in other developed nations. Well, in the European Union, in general, in the European Union, this is citing, I want to say it was a study from Milbank 2000, Milbank 2019, and it was that 30%, this is from National Center of Biotechnology Institute, NCBI, which is accredited by the many U.S. governmental agencies, uh, in its including the CDC, um, and it's about 30%, obesity being 30%. Now that's still quite a bit, but they have taken steps to reduce obesity. Now, a big problem, and a big problem with fast food and with sugar is that big sugar and fast food, big food, I guess you could call it, they take advantage of our youth. You open up any sort of kids show, you'll see McDonald's ads where they have different play toys, and then your kid wants to go to McDonald's, and they start wanting to go to McDonald's more, and they start their new line of consumers from after conception. And their target audience is younger ages, so that way they can continue. It's the same like with big tobacco. I mean, they will target younger audiences with e-cigarettes to make future potential customers, which die of lung cancer and many other terrible diseases caused by this. And we haven't even seen the effects of e-cigarettes, but we have seen the effects and are undergoing the effects of sugar. The FDA is and USDA have failed at stopping this. They've failed at imposing regulations that stop the big food and big sugar from targeting our youth and our children, and making them into customers so early on. Childhood obesity is through the roof, and then when you get to the psychological aspects of it, when your parents are obese, you have about an 80% to 60% chance, a 60 to 80% chance, and I want to say that that also comes from CDC.gov of Oral Psychology Today, and I'll make sure to include this to go through my notes and reaffirm where that came from. That their children, 60 to 80% of their children, also become obese. Now, we go on to really the bittersweet truth about sugar labeling and regulations, and that is that there aren't many. That there's way too much sugar in our diets, and that needs to be brought down. Uh, more food, a lot of food has too many preservatives in it, and then we're not regulating that as much as we should. They're putting too much instead of too little, um, and that's quite frankly a problem. And and that comes from Jennifer L. Pomeraz, PhD, JD, and that comes from her article from NCBI that she wrote. Now, let's go to another big point that we've touched on before, but we need to touch on again, uh, and how the EU has already really regulated how big food and big sugar can advertise to younger audiences. In fact, they in some cases can't. In certain countries, they don't get McDonald's commercials, they don't get Arby's commercials, they don't get all these commercials from all these big fast food places that make their food look way too good, and they do make it look better through means that make the food edible to children. They make it look better in the commercials than it is in reality, and they make it seem like it would be better for them and in the advertisements than reality. And because of that, the EU is very specific, and countries in the EU and in Europe, as well as Japan and other developed countries, have made strides in making sure that they do that, and in labeling as well. as well as content in food. It's not just all these different, just absolute insane ingredients uh, that you don't even know what it is. Oh, this really weird name. No, 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 no. It's not like that. It's, oh yeah, it's green tea, water, and all this other sort of stuff. It's not all this other, all these other chemical compounds that you don't even know what they are, but they're just regular, just different preservatives. However, they affect the body regardless. Um, and how are we? We've established the FDA and USDA have failed, and they failed at preventing advertisements targeting the youth and just advertisements targeting uh, the audiences that are too young. We've talked about how they've just briefly, but we've talked about how they've changed the labeling criteria as well as the content criteria in their foods. So how do we get the USDA and FDA to do the same? Well, we just need to speak up about it, like anything. There needs to be a change in dietary education, uh, as my plate and the food pyramid is lacking a very essential component that is big food and big sugar. It is an absolute killer and something that needs to be addressed. Um, and just to conclude it all, just to wrap it all up, I have to say that before the COVID-19 pandemic, we had an epidemic of our own, and it has killed and maimed more Americans than our recent wars. And it's an issue that we have essentially accepted as a way of life. Um, that it's an injustice that affects everybody equally, so nobody talks about it, and it's truly something that we all need to be educated about. Uh, and that's my presentation. I would like to add something after that. If there's any background noise, I'm extremely sorry. Sisters and sleepovers, and this is just for the teacher at the cutoff point where you know, and on top of that, I didn't know like how long I need to make this. If I need to make it longer, tell me, and I will do my best. All right, thanks for listening.